schism that was totally, covered in Islam
I love
from right back at the beginning.
physics.
Yeah,
I love physics, and that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Even Satan will say, I'm not to blame. I only whispered, you followed me by your own volition.
Yeah.
Why do you blame me?
We don't know.
I think part of my upbringing, my parents didn't introduce me into church. They didn't tell me I wasn't baptized. They didn't open that life.
Are you okay?
Life to me.
Are you okay?
Yeah. So it was something that was kind of foreign to me, and I think as I grew up and I sort of got more freedom, I started realizing that actually I was quite interested. I did find it quite beautiful. I just never had that relationship with God or with religion because my parents didn't raise me to have that relationship.
So deep inside you, so you know that there has to be a creator.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So this belief is not just, as some people say, it's a blind faith. It is an intellectual conviction.
Yeah.
Because belief is an assertion based on some kind of knowledge claim with a warrant. That's what a true belief and a statement of a belief is.
Yeah.
So it's not a blind belief. So you have a conviction already. I mean, perhaps you haven't articulated it.
Yeah.
And the question now is, having that deep conviction inside you, which you acknowledge and affirm that there is a creator, you can ask yourself, why is there a disconnect from then pursuing to know this creator who created all of this, including you? Is it sort of lack of, or could it be distraction, where you are preoccupied with some interests and ideas and concepts where you're trying to explore, and that's keeping you busy? For example, some people who are doing research, sometimes they don't know. This is a friend of mine. Assalamu alaikum.
I used to be atheist. I came to Islam.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We can hear his story in a brief.
I don't know how to do it
surprising.
briefly. I'll tell you later.
Yeah. So just to make my point, I think that can come back to you in the discussion. Quite be interesting. Some people, when they're doing research of anything, they're in their labs or something. They don't even know that it's gone past, because once you have access to 24-hour access in your labs and something, you are working 8 days a week. You didn't even know what's going on. Just going out for occasional bathrooms or sleep in the couch here and then in the office, or just go and get some sandwiches. Time flies because you're distracted with something.
Yeah.
You're not busy, or you're not free enough, this opposite way, to think about anything else at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah? So do you think it could be? Okay. So,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because I wouldn't, from what you're describing about your understanding of God, it's not some kind of like, I'm careless,
No.
but your distraction has perhaps preoccupied you with something else.
Yeah.
And some things, with this, because I'm a Muslim, I believe the Quran is the guidance of God directly.
Yeah.
There is a surah or a chapter in the Quran which describes this phenomenon. Like it says, أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ. Okay? All people are running towards more and more and more. It's like a constant running. Until they come to their graves. And then soon they will know the reality and so on. So the reality is everyone's so busy, constantly running after more and more and more. You have one car, you're not happy, you need another one.
Yeah.
You have one house, you need another one. Constantly about the materialistic outlook of life. I need more and more. And this is what majority of people, willingly or unwillingly, are into this. They want more. They don't even realize that the reason I'm doing this is because of this. So the Quran reminds us saying, but you'll soon realize when you're dead that wasn't the whole purpose you're supposed to have. So it brings us, it will be a long discussion for what I can see.
No, they're getting quite heated, huh?
No. He's a friend of mine too as well. Okay? So I very much doubt there will be any quote.
He promised me he wouldn't.
No.
He
This
wouldn't get
discussion won't be heated. I mean,
Okay.
we know him from.
It's interesting
30 years.
what you're saying about the distractions, particularly because when I was atheist and I was non-Muslim, I didn't really realise or appreciate how much I was depending upon things in different ways, and they were sort of my means or my way to have stability or safety.
We can
or
give you
achieve
links.
something.
We can. Sorry to interrupt. We can give you links to some of those where you
That
can
would
watch
be
the whole conversation,
amazing.
both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of them is DawahWise, DAWAH, and wise as in wise, wisdom wise.
Yeah.
And you can find both of this conversation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Continue. Sorry to interrupt.
Sorry, yeah. So this sort of, it's interesting, the materialistic sort of dependence, because this becomes, you know, I need X to do Y, and how can I do it? I needed this whole kind of safety net of stuff and so on. Whereas when I rely on Allah, like He's the provider, He's the sustainer. If I don't have something, it's because I was mistaken thinking I would need it. Right? There's a whole different attitude.
Wanting and needing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it becomes clear, like, because I, you know, it was a difficult process. I had to really solidly believe He is there, and then believe about His characteristics and how He works and so on. It was a long, rational process and all this kind of stuff. But once that became in place, this was able to sort of free my heart and my soul from dependence on, you know.
How long
things.
did that take?
That is an excellent question. It was kind of happened in 2 rounds.
Because that must
It's almost
be
a life story.
That must be quite a surreal challenge to go through, going from believing in one religion to another. There must have been a transition.
From no religion to and I wasn't just no religion. I was raised to actively hate religions and really believe this was the problem with the world and everything. When I was a atheist, fiercely against religion kind of person. I went to study theoretical physics, and one of the guys I was studying with was a Muslim from Egypt, and I was like, how can you study physics and believe in God? How does that even work? And yeah, at least 6 months more later, you know, pretty much daily debates and stuff like that. It's, but I think it's interesting because a lot of people actually don't really follow and understand exactly how science works, but they trust it because they see the technology. They see benefits for them at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I find that fascinating because if you take the Shahada and you understand...
What do you mean by Shahada?
The Shahada, the testimony of faith, saying, I believe there's one God and Muhammad is his messenger.
Yeah.
It sort of becomes, that's like the key to decrypt everything else. You know, decryption on your phone, whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's like the key. And with that, you then decrypt and unlock everything, and you can then see everything else. And then you can get these benefits. And then you have the proof that it works in reality. See what I mean?
And in the Quran, what is it, Shahada. Where does that come from? What was they using that testament at the time? Because you can relate it to now in today's society, but it's completely different now. We live in a completely different society.
Yet the Shahada stands exactly as it was back then.
Really?
There is one God.
Yeah.
La ilaha illallah, really, which means there's no God but the one God.
Really?
Allah means, like, in Arabic you put al at the beginning of something to mean definite article, the one.
Yeah.
So Allah is really linguistically the God. And so you say there's no God but the God, and then you say Muhammad is his messenger. And that's the Shahada.
So how did you navigate when there's so many different religions claiming about different kind of concepts of God? I mean, we can arrive conclusively intellectually that there is a God, I mean, as you already arrived at. But when you want to navigate around this world where multiple understandings of God, pluralistic understanding of God, pantheistic understanding of God, what I mean by that, some people believe God is this world and the world is God. They're all the same. There's no difference. The creator and the creator is the same. Or the creation is part of God, pantheistic kind of beliefs. Or there are actually more than one God. How did you, from an atheist perspective, navigate to say there can only be one God in reality?
So pantheist approaches to labeling something in creation as God are actually just different forms of naturalism, because this thing where you say it's the energy with its laws, call it God or don't call it God, this is pantheism. And so, you know, actually, but it doesn't resolve a lot of the logical conundrums to do with existence, necessary existence. There's, I don't want to go into too much sort of philosophical detail, but basically it falls apart on so many levels and is no better than atheism. Whereas when you talk about a creator that is external to his creation, separate from it, yet in communication with it, exactly. That's all. So then Islam presents this to me, and I go, okay, this makes perfect sense. But I would never be satisfied going around eliminating every other religion, because there's thousands of them.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't. So for me, very interesting turning point. I explained that sort of explains how I did this. Was when I was debating with this Muslim friend of mine, I kept refusing him any axiom, which is any prior proposition at all. So say, like everything you say you've got to prove. Nothing can be taken for granted at all. And it's like, and then he challenged me. Well, why don't you apply the same standards? And I was kind of like, hang on a minute, where's the hypocrisy? And then I realised when you study maths or physics or anything else, you have to take at least one axiom. In fact, you have to take many axioms.
Yeah.
Even for the underlying maths, before you've taken Newton's 3 laws, before you've taken all the thermodynamics, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, the way it works there is you take these on, and then you build up the theory and the understanding, and then you see it works.
Yeah.
So the challenge was, is it the same with Islam? And when I came to understand how it works, in particular, key crucial concept is this oneness of God and what it really means for him to be fully in control. Like, I can intend to move my hand, but it's only by his permission that it actually moves. Right? He knows every leaf that drops. It's not, a lot of people think of it.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, but this is why
our
our actions are judged by our intentions, not the outcomes. See, we only really have freedom of intention. Otherwise, the whole world wouldn't work. It wouldn't be able to clash.
Yeah.
And this works all the way down to physics as well. If you analyse things, it solves a lot of so-called conundrums in free will versus determinism and so on.
So when it comes to pluralistic understanding of God, okay, pantheistic and panentheistics is a form of naturalism, but there are certainly religions out there that promotes and propagate about many gods, whether God the Father, Son, brother, sister, wife. There are many Eastern and Western religions. So how did you decide that is not the right concept, but rather monotheism?
So polytheism essentially is almost a contradiction in that these so-called deities, if there's more than one of them, then either they're constantly contradicting each other, in which case, which is worse than you think. It's not just chaotic clash, but things wouldn't come into existence in the first place. They still haven't agreed on the plan, essentially. Right, and so essentially they're either false deities, or it's someone's taken one deity and carved it into separate pieces, or it's got to be something like that. Without again going into too much detail. But even so, like I said, I didn't go around eliminating other belief systems. I essentially understood Shahada and particularly this thing called Tawheed, which is this oneness of God and the power, the control I was talking about, that relationship with him. And essentially I understood, if I couple that with what I said about how we understand physics and maths, and how we sort of work with it, it suddenly sort of hit me, and I realized that this isn't just an excellent theory, this is the best possible theory even in principle. I don't need to go and look at any others to know that there will be no better theory. There's one single axiom. From this Shahada, you think of it this way, right? I used to even struggle sometimes with, do I definitely exist? Or is that something I'm taking as an axiom, as a prior belief? Am I just doing that for convenience? Or is that what's called a brute fact that I'm pulling out of the air, because otherwise what do I do? If I try and say, I think this, but I don't exist, that's already a contradiction, so I can't go down that route. So I used to struggle with this stuff, and really that is also a prior belief people take, logically speaking. But in the Shahada, that immediately pulls in the Quran, and pulls in the sayings of Muhammad, the Prophet, and from that it immediately pulls in a full functioning epistemology, which is a method of determining what's true, what's right, what's false, and a full functioning ontology, which is the structure of things from the highest abstraction level of creation all the way down to the lowest detail. The entire framework, beautiful, consistent framework that's been worked on thousands of years and no holes in it, is all pulled in from this single axiom. And even including, if I read through the Quran, do I exist as yes, that follows from that. So now, that isn't an axiom anymore. Now that follows from the Shahada. So I realised literally everything that I could provably believe that made sense follows directly from this. And there can't be a better alternative.
And how has your opinion and beliefs changed? Because you said that you studied physics at a high level. Compared physics, we talk about energy, magnetism, quantum field, as opposed to your now beliefs in Quran. Has that altered? Have you alternated between?
Yeah,
I have quite a connection. I believe to energy, to magnetism, to quantum field. I like the idea that works. I've tested it. It's worked.
So a lot of what's changed is my, what I'd say is my ontology, like what's prior to what, or what's foundational to what.
Which what you said before.
And so, previously when I was atheist, I believed that stuff is out there, and in and of itself, in its own nature, it works a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
And any miracle was supposed to be some exception to those rules.
Yeah.
And now I believe it's all actively managed by Allah. One verse we have in the Quran is like, if He wasn't holding us together, we would fall apart. The birds are held in the air by Him, right? So it's this sort of active management thing means anything we see or can identify the pattern of, such as magnetism waves, is identifying some of how He is doing things. And these are actually called, the lines we refer to in the Quran are called ayat. And ayat is Arabic for signs. Each line is a sign. But ayat is also the word for the signs that He shows us in the world. So this whole thing of the book of religion and the book of nature was that's already a split, a schism that was totally, covered in Islam from right up at the beginning. Yeah,
I love physics, and that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Ayat.
very good. Ayat, signs, yeah.
So the Quran, because it's a book, if you think the book is...
getting grilled over there. The guy is grilling him.
Is it? So he's being tested with his coherence. That would be nice to see later on how coherent he was able to defend.
This is a present for you.
Yeah, so when we talk about... Oh, thank you. Right, exactly what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
So the Quran, as a book, it's divided into certain, sections, and each section is called a surah. As you can see, this is like surah, this is another surah. There's 114 surahs for the whole Quran. Some of them are variant length, like, spanning lots of pages. Others is just like, as you can see, only few. Look at that. This is like 3. Yeah? Only 3.
Okay.
Each one of them is an ayat or ayah. That's what it's referring to. With its unique signs or unique messages that it has. And if you think about this one, Surah Al-Ikhlas, 112 surah, you will see whether you study physics, chemistry, mathematics, biology, or any field of study, you will resonate yourself with the coherence of it.
I'm sure it will, yeah.
This is actually particularly beautiful because one of the things that hit me like a rock was this, like bolt of lightning really, is this last line, nor is there any other like him, or there's none others like him. You've got to be careful with the translations because Semitic languages are so different from Indo-European ones.
Yeah.
This is only like an approximate kind of meaning.
And that's probably what it says here.
Yeah.
Meaning, English meaning, rather than translation.
With everything in there, you need to dig in. Some things I thought I understood, and actually I totally didn't. Some things seem shocking, and then when I speak to someone, it's, that applies to a specific context. That's not, okay, I get it. But this particular one, there's none other like him. I realised that all of these so-called anti-theism arguments that I had run before, they all apply to some generic concept of God. But there's none others like him means they are all a category error from the outset.
Of him.
Yeah, because he doesn't go in any other category. You can't put him in a category with others.
Because the creator and the creation are two different categories. Comparing the creation with the creator is a category error and logical fallacy.
But also where people try and argue against theism generally, and they try and say, it can't be any kind of concept of deity. This one, they've got a whole bucket of possible deity ideas, and then they put Allah in there as well. But he doesn't fit in the category, so you've already broken the rules of definition of him. So logically, it's basically that one line is already logically ahead of pretty much the entire cohort of Enlightenment philosophers, when they tried to fight the concept of one God in the first place. Just that one line.
But that's the last ayah. If you go to the very beginning, it's talking about say that He is Allah, God, the one, the only, the unique. That's what it means, ahad. So introducing you that there is God. This is about debunking all polytheistic understanding, naturalistic understanding. He's all right. He's all right.
It doesn't get physical here, does it?
No, not with our friends. Right. Okay.
No, because he has a master's in debating politics.
That's fine.
Oh, does he?
That is going to be a good debate.
This is him.
Yeah.
And he promised me he wouldn't get involved in one because I knew. And somehow
This
he's
is-
now.
No, it's going to be a good debate because
No, but he's going to leave here probably all like.
both of them are very experienced debaters, so that's good in terms of.
Okay.
Yeah, there are great. As I said,
I can't see him.
No.
I can just hear him.
All right.
again another someone in
I wonder what they're debating about.
debating. So he's very much into philosophy of science. Debated lots of university professors. So actually, so they're now going to have an academic type of debate.
So both
That's
very
exactly it
academic.
then.
Yeah.
He has a master's in it.
Yeah.
And he.
That's very good to know. So just to go back on this, just to show when I said resonate with you,
Yes.
whether you're a physicist or mathematician,
Yes.
that God, Allah is one and only and unique, and that when we affirm about our existence needs grounding in the necessary existence, which has to be necessarily one absolute existence, one
Yeah.
being, which you already affirmed. So this is what you're saying, okay, God is that one and only and unique, and being one and only and unique already tells you that necessarily, as He exists, He has to be self-sufficient. Otherwise there'll be something else, someone else, to derive or extract or get this abilities and power or existence. So
This second line is actually a beautiful example of what I was saying, where the Indo-European languages don't quite carry the meaning. This second line is literally just Allah. So the first is Qul huwallahu ahad. Say He is one. Allahu as-samad. So that second line, where he's describing He is self-sufficient, He is independent, He is, there's something like, if you look up the lexicon, you'll find something like 10 English words trying to approximate.
They can't.
That's it.
a footnote 2012 to describe this one word, they're saying, look, He who is absolute,
wow.
perfect, complete, essential, self-sufficient, and sufficient in to meet
There is
the
a word.
one word, so concise but rich in meaning, describing all of this and all befitting to the absolute creator God that we have understanding of. And being one and only and unique with an absolute self-sufficient being of perfection, He neither begets nor born, meaning He doesn't produce offspring, He doesn't have lineage, He doesn't have parents or any generators like father, mother, grandfather, anything. So being one and only and unique, self-sufficient, so no father, no mother, no lineage, no offspring, and that it follows with coherent understanding, He is unlike anything that you can imagine in any way, shape or form. That is what God describes about the God that you believe in and affirm. That's why it will resonate with you. That's why one of the things if I were to ask him, why Islam? Monotheism makes sense, but why Islam? Because Islam is that monotheistic concept that we have, that has been throughout the ages, our same God sense, but people may have deviated from it.
Yeah.
Islam just reminds us back to the same essential message, which is
It's
this.
a really good point that
Oh, by the way, this is
people know,
yours.
I think you'll really appreciate is what we believe is that from the first human, Adam, alayhi salam,
I wanted to
onwards,
ask this.
so we believe that there's always the same message of pure monotheism, and that Islam is essentially I mean, say today perfected as religion, but essentially the same core message, but being developed in a chain of prophets,
Yeah.
delivered into humanity, and that all the other systems essentially come from throughout long annals
I'll
of
be back in
time.
a second. Sorry.
Deviation is what gave people thought, oh, he's the one in control of the wind, and then they started thinking of it as a separate deity, and that was the misguidance.
In the afterlife?
And the afterlife for us. So we believe we go into our graves. There's a period of time it's called the barzakh, where we're in the grave. But that can either be a good time or a bad time. and then after that there's a resurrection, where we're all lifted out. There's a whole, the eschatology is incredible, very detailed, very profound. There's so many. See, I wouldn't want to pick too many parts of it, but essentially, all your good deeds and bad deeds get weighed, bearing in mind what I said about intention. And before you get weighed, you've essentially, there's this sort of arbitrage process where anyone you wronged gets to take good deeds from you, and if you don't have any left, then they've done bad deeds on you, and so on. And so there's this whole sort of process.
So it's the accountability of your belief in your actions.
And there's also a very, very interesting point, which is a lot of people will be. There's something called the khutbah of Iblis. Khutbah is like a speech or sermon delivered, and Iblis is like the arch bad jinn. So basically, you'll have a bunch of people running around saying, "I only disbelieve because of what that guy said and that guy said," and they're all pointing fingers, and all these fingers are going to be pointing at Iblis. And then he'll get back on his khutbah and he'll say,
Iblis means Satan. Iblis, that's the name of Iblis.
Satan, yeah.
Iblis,
he's the arch. He's the one who originally disobeyed God in the beginning.
So a lot of this you find similarity with the previous belief systems in Judeo-Christianity, because initially and originally they were the same message, but they deviated.
This is what I was explaining there, yeah.
Before, yeah.
And so all these fingers were pointing back. Well, ultimately, those people will gather because they're busy blaming each other, and they'll ultimately, all these fingers will point back to Iblis, and he'll stand there with a footboard and say, "Yep, I lied. All on you. God made you a promise, I made you a promise, I lied, he doesn't. To you is your affairs, to me isn't it?" The amount of the profundity, the number of details that are in there, the way they have such implications for how we think about our sort of personal economy, essentially. What am I doing in my life? What am I doing with my time? Why and so on.
So what's the end? So after the judgment and accountability, where do you go?
Well, so the end is obviously either Jannah, which is heaven, or Jahannam, which is the hellfire.
So we believe in place of happiness or torment, because that's where God's justice and His mercy is demonstrated.
But it's interesting that we do believe that some people will be pulled out of the hellfire. Not a lot of people are aware of that, but that is quite interesting. You don't want to go anywhere near it, not even for a second. For sure, you don't want to bank on that. But basically, there's the two things it sort of balances between is not one drop of, I'm paraphrasing, not one drop of faith, of belief in God will be wasted, as in left at the hellfire, but also not one drop of arrogance is permitted into heaven. And so that's the process, that's how it works. Long
So the
story short.
key to go into the place of reward or happiness, joy, bliss, tranquility, what we describe as heaven, is one essential element, which is three components. In your heart, the recognition and affirmation that there is no God worthy of worship except the one and only true God, and declaring that with your mouth, with your tongue, affirming what you already in your heart, and then manifesting that affirmation with your limbs by doing the actions. So that's where the faith and actions come hand in hand together in Islam. And it's all central around declaration and affirmation that there is no God worthy of worship except the one and only. And you do that by following the Prophet and the Messenger that he has sent. And the final of them is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you're at the time of Moses, for example, the Prophet, as you know from the Bible, biblical stories, at that time, whosoever believed that there was no God worthy of worship that God in accordance with what God sent Moses with, the guidance, laws, regulations, instructions, and they followed him, they are called Muslims, and they will be in heaven. And Muslim is that generic understanding which is submission and surrender of yourself to the will of one true creator. So in that way, a tree is a Muslim. The sun and the moon, all are Muslims because they follow the law of God. But in a technical sense, Muslim now is also that you submit your will willingly and sincerely to the will of one true creator as shown by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam who's been sent. So you bring the Prophet in this because that's how the will of God is expressed. If I say, look, I submit to God and to His will, where is this will expressed? Through the Prophet and Messenger, which they have now come with the Quran
Key
and the
litmus
explanation.
test is when stuff happens to you, are you able to accept it and work with reality, or do you, you know, I can't take it, it's not right, it's wrong, whatever. See, this is the thing, it's can you accept the decree of Allah? I don't know if you've seen some of the people, you know, in Palestine, right, and they're holding bits of their children. It's such an unfair thing that's happened, and yet they accept Allah's decree. This is you know, incredible.
The amount of resilience they show, it
But
doesn't
all of
shake
this-
their faith.
all of
They
this-
still believe in
one,
God.
One thing that's actually really important to note again, because we mentioned a lot about worship, is the concept of worship from the West is often not well understood compared to the way we see it.
Yeah.
So if I demonstrate an act of worship right now, Bismillah. Bismillah means for the sake of Allah. I picked up this rubbish from the floor for the sake of Allah. I'm standing here giving dawah invitation for the sake of Allah. That's worship.
How did that become part of worship? If that was, say, some rubbish there, a thorn, which might hurt others, and you removed it with this intention, because every action has to have with the intention. All action needs, as he described, with the intention. Good, if it's not the correct intention, like imagine now, he did that to show off, then it doesn't count as worship. So you have to do the right intention to please
Exactly.
your creator, and if you did that, that becomes part of worship. Having relationship between husbands and wife, if you do that to please God in the way that it's allowed and permissible, becomes worship.
Yeah.
Even that, worship is not just going to a mosque and praying. Essentially, everything that you do, every actions, if it's done in accordance with God and God's will, what He's pleased with, it's worship in Islam.
It's an acceptable, if it's in accordance with Him, it's an acceptable worship. Now here's an interesting subtlety. If I say to you, you know, somebody sacrifices their entire life for something, that's an act of worship, right? Pretty clear, pretty hard to refute that. Now, if you have a point of birth and a point of death, everything alive does, and a continuously connected path of existence in between. Well, every section of that life, you're choosing, you're making choices because you can't do everything. And so you're always sacrificing something for something. So the question is not if, but what you're worshipping at every moment, the whole time. And so our task is for maximizing the productivity, in a sense, of us, the value that we have, you know, as one of God's creations. And that's sort of the metric we do. That's why we ask in every single prayer, 5 times a day, you know, at the beginning of all the rapids we do, we ask for ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, just guide us to this straight path. You know, don't let us deviate and wander, because like all of those are lost opportunities. We want to go as straight as possible and do the right thing, because this is essentially, if you take the science approach, it's a little delta X, a little micro, you know, variation to test, and not that Allah doesn't know, but it's to prove His justice, to prove His mercy, to prove to everyone. Because at the end of the day, like, there's humans, there's angels, and there's jinn. We all got to live together.
Jinn is another form of creation
Jinn
that
is
we
this-
don't see necessarily.
Yeah, Iblis is
Linguistic,
a jinn, but not all jinn are bad.
it's hidden from our sight,
Yeah.
but we exist in there, and that's why, you know, people are still struggling to understand in the scientific world. I mean, the paranormal, because to us it's not anything abnormal, because we know in other worlds, which is beyond our capability of vision, there are creatures that exist. They exist in their own domain and so on and so forth, and maybe there's some kind of overlap here and there, but that's where the jinn, or people say demon possession, exists. But it's something that's they care about their lives and you care about their life, so we don't have to worry about them. Yeah,
We tend to call it the unseen.
yeah.
But these are things that, you know, it's not shown to us. But then Allah can reveal what He wills to various people as well. You know, some people have seen them, some people are possessed. But in fact, each one of us is attached to a jinn. Every human being is attached to what we call a qareem, which is a jinn. And the dynamics of a human is part of it is settled by, you know, are they powerful over us, or are we, you know, in control over them?
Do you know, sometimes often have
Huge
all these
element.
thoughts in you, and you're struggling, and then it's like you're debating yourself, should I do this or not? So we say oftentimes this is where this whispering comes, and we can overtake that and be in control, and we can, you know.
This is actually a very interesting example of the question you asked me earlier. When I was talking about But you remember when I said that people often trust the sciences because the technology comes after it and so on? I was talking about a number of different benefits. One of them was suddenly becoming aware of this coin, this gym attached to me, the way it works, like all of these things. It's like, oh no, it's the other way around. It is that. And those frameworks partly work, partly don't work, you know. But actually, this is exactly what's going on, and you can see it internally. You can feel it going on. I gotcha. Now I see it, and then I can start to actually do what we call jihad, which is a struggle.
Have you heard of this word jihad, which is so much as a buzzword in the media, where it means like go and do all these bad things against people?
Any kind of.
But in Islam, the concept is totally, abused and exploited by people from its context. It's a struggle internally and externally. Internal struggle is against all these whispers about your ego that comes in and tries to make you, not as all the qualities of a human being expect, all the virtues. There are things about, say, struggling against greed, about hatred, about jealousy, about anger. So many things that we struggle against because these things are there within our makeup and we need to be in control of it. It's not that we're created like robots with no feelings or created something like we are already perfect. No, we are created with all this difference of having these abilities. We can actually go either way, in a way to cultivate all good within us or be all extremely bad within us, as some people have become extremely I would say inhuman in their behaviors. So ours is like elevate all the virtues, and that's your internal struggle. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he actually said in one of his statements that he was raised to elevate these virtues, the good characters human beings have. So we don't believe we are doomed to begin with. We believe we are created, we are born, and we have the opportunities where we can grow and develop and come to that level of
That's a very good point. Yeah, it's again, because you might have heard from Christianity this original sin idea or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's nothing like that in Islam. You're born sinless. This is it. You have your blank slate.
Choose.
That's your first blank slate. If you're like me, I was non-Muslim, and you come to Islam, that's your other chance for a blank slate. Which is when you take your shahada that we mentioned before, the testimony of faith. Then you are granted a clean slate from that point on. And what's fascinating about that is, and it's not just me, it's everyone, is the feeling that you get is very, very profound. And I've actually used that as essentially this internal spiritual compass, ever since, because you can sort of try and lock on, try and get back to that kind of feeling. And the further you sort of, stray from it one way or another, I'm like, this is my heart's dirty, my soul's dirty. I need to do more prayer, or what's called tawbah, which is a process of repentance and this kind of stuff, and try and get back as close as I can to that clean slate. And I feel like I've actually got this, an actual, what's the word? An empirical tool, an empirical thing built into me now, which is from noticing that experience.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
So as Muslims, as you see, we resonate with you. What we believe and do is something that is like being finely tuned with the reality. And this is what we are trying to invite others to as well. So ours is not simply keeping it for your own self, because that would be selfish. This is not one of the virtue character of a human being. It's to share what is there out there for benefit of other people. One of the reasons the prophets came to remind people to come back to this reality of the truth and realization, so everyone can be saved from an impending punishment that awaits for people who are arrogant and stubborn. And as human beings, after the prophets and messengers, the duty falls on us to convey that message as best as we can, so people can make a decision for themselves willingly, with their own volition, and then free themselves from the punishment that awaits and enter into the bliss of heaven.
And one thing I would say is, obviously I had this long process of, debates that I spoke about and stuff like that before. And afterwards, I was largely kicking myself. Why didn't I jump in this sooner? But also, ever since then, for a number of reasons, I've sometimes struggled with Allah. You know, why didn't you give me this from the beginning? Why did I have to wait so long before I had this? And you know, if you don't want to wait and you don't want to delay any longer is necessary for you to have sufficient commitment to it, because one, there's all these benefits you're missing out on. The other thing is you never know when your end might come. Like if you're if you're sincere and you believe, then this is kind of the test is, are you actually true to yourself? If faced to the truth, and if faced to this opportunity for actual guidance from God, are you going to take that? Or are you going to either find an excuse or accept an excuse that's offered to you to sort of delay? Because again, this is all attributes that are attributed to the people that ultimately follow Shaitan. And so this is this thing that we really would exhort you against. Because
the truth of Islam is known through that process of internal realization of as a physicist between yourself. And for those who want more of a comfort and say, okay, but are there any other external evidence? Are there any falsification tests? Because you're students of, or people experts in physics, Quran offers those to keep this mind finally in tune with this kind of confirmation level, that I'm not biased to my spirituality, but I'm actually making a balance between intellectual query with my spiritual understanding that this is the truth. The Quran offers that. There's quite lots of falsification tests. One of them is, if it wasn't from God, then you will find within it many discrepancies. It clearly spells it out. Like if that wasn't from Creator Almighty, you'd find it contradicts with each other. That's what we expect if it was a human product, for example. And the other important falsification test Quran offers is, if people think it's not from God, then let them do this. And if they don't do that, then know that this is from God. So there's a very important challenge in the Quran to imitate the Quran in its composition. But of course the challenge is in Arabic, but the Quran doesn't stop there and saying, if you can't do it yourself, go and ask for help and seek others to do that job for you. So it gives you a very scientific and approach of falsifying this Quran if it wasn't from God. So that's that.
The imitation criteria, just briefly, it's very, very interesting because this is something where, again, from my perspective, I looked at it when this is a computation and feasibility question. So it speaks back to this. Could he have come up with it himself? Could it have come from some consortium of people? And for a whole bunch of reasons, absolutely not. But even today, this is a guy in the desert 1,400 years ago. But even today, with the massive data farms that are feeding into ChatGPT and the very latest in large language models, it's just like a peak task for them. You ask them to try and produce an ayat like it, produce any portion like the Quran, and it'll come back and be like, I can't. There's the reasons why I can't. But ask it to produce something like any other author, go ahead all day long. Ask it to do something like the Quran, and it'll be like, well, the best, if you really push it, it can be like, well, this is kind of like an attempt, and here's why it doesn't work.
Because some people think, okay, maybe I don't know much and so on, but we have, he's a Christian or something. Everyone has their own ways preaching. That's his way of preaching. It's okay.
Rather than preaching.
He's not aggressive.
Smoking.
No. He's not aggressive or anything. He's a preacher. That's how I preach. Okay. If you didn't know that, but you would be like what's wrong?
Never been here.
All right.
For some
We
people,
had no idea what we were
Yeah. So
for some people, that's a method of invitation.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
Argument?
Great question.
No, he's inviting people to become Christians. That's his way of doing it.
Oh wow.
How would someone even go
It's
close
okay,
to
brother. Everyone has their own ways.
Inviting.
So, everyone has their own ways, right?
At all, for sure.
We can't generalize Christianity with one individual.
But I never understood why people do that.
Yeah, there was another Christian man over
As we
there
were
that was
initially
looking
watching.
into Nico's soul
Was he
very
now?
aggressively.
Yeah.
I can see your sexuality. I can see that you need repelling.
You know what's interesting is
right here. He's not gay.
You know what's really interesting here is in Islam it's very, very important to us to know that, you know, the content of his heart, his intentions, you know, his mind is known only to Allah. In fact, Allah knows it better than he does, and I don't. And it's something that's so well baked into the culture and society. You know, people, you instantly, if someone oversteps that mark, you just need to point it out. And that's it. And it's completely dealt with. Yeah, it's a really well-known. You know, if someone says something, you cross over the line. It's like, what, you sign up to emails from Al-Raib, which is the unseen, and like, oh well, yeah, what an idiot I am. I'm so ashamed because that kind of thing's intrinsic. It's interesting. I'm autistic. And one of the things I found is having struggled to fit into a whole bunch of different social groups, or have to adapt a lot, mask up and so on to fit into different groups. In Islam, it's like ready-made to accept it perfectly. And there's things like the etiquette of going into a mosque, and you can just go in and sit down and read a book, and it's quiet, and that's fine. Or you can go up and say hello. Everyone, you know, gives salams, you know, which is, you know, peace be upon you, and so on. And these kind of things. Another thing is no backbiting, right? So that word is not even very well understood in the West because it's part of normal socialization.
Yeah.
But in Muslim circles, backbiting is such a severe, like, disgusting sin.
Yeah.
You just need to point out it's happening. Like, do not talk about someone when they're not here in any way they might dislike. So there's all these kind of things that are sort of, you know, built into this.
So Islam now, as you realize, is this, you know, universal message of God given throughout times, but finalized with the final prophet and messenger. So we believe he is the final prophet and a messenger from God, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that means we already believe in the existence of other prophets and messengers God sent throughout human times. And he says every nation had a prophet and messenger because he doesn't punish any nation unless he tells them what is required of them, because otherwise it will be unjust. So every nation in the past had a messenger telling them what is required of them, do's and don'ts.
So much today.
Yeah. And we also believe in the angels that God has in this place. We believe there are angels here and here recording all our deeds, the good and the bad, so that you can't.
I believe that.
Because the reminder.
Yeah. Because we might say, I didn't do it, but they will have said, there you go, this is your whole video footage, what you've done. Audio, video footage, transcription is there. So we believe in this.
Or one beautiful little detail of that, your good deeds on your right shoulder, written down straight away. Bad deeds, you wait, so you got a chance to repent.
Oh, I'm left-handed.
It doesn't mean you're good or bad because you're left-handed. It's the one that's on your right shoulder is the one that records your good deeds. And the one on your left shoulder
but then
is the
I
one
have
that
to
records
write
your
it
bad
down
deeds.
with my left hand.
Oh no,
No, not you. The angels. They are transcribing everything.
There's an angel on your right. There's an angel.
But if you repent, then they won't write it, because by repenting it becomes a good deed already. So how Islam reconciles with the mercy of God, our intention is just like this. If you intend to do anything good, if you make an intention to do good, even if you don't do it, you get a reward because you were intended to do good. And if you actually go and do it, what you intend, you get lots of rewards, multiplied. That's good things. How God's mercy is there in action. If you intend to do bad, if you do it, then you get one sin. But if you don't do it, having intended to initially and don't do it, you get a reward. Because you stop yourself from doing that bad action. And once you've done that bad action, it doesn't get multiplied, because that will be unjust, only counts as one sin. When it comes to good actions, it's multiplied.
That's stopping yourself rather than something external. Like if you're hit by a bus and that stops you, it's different. But if you stop yourself, that's the good deed. That's what gets recorded.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what I'm just giving you in a nutshell what Muslims believe. We believe those prophets, some of them brought books from God as messages and gave to these people. And as we described, we believe in accountability in a day of judgment. And we believe God has given us the choice. The good and bad is already known to God. He's the one in control, but He gives us free will. So we believe in this amount of free will that is given. So these are what we've described, some articles of faith in Islam, believing in God and His prophets, His books that He sent, in the angels, in the day of judgment, in the good and bad from God. And as Muslims, once we have affirmation of our belief in our heart, declaration with our tongue, and actions with our limbs, we demonstrate how by doing this prayer. So one is the first pillar of Islam is this fundamental declaration that there is no God worthy of worship and Muhammad is His messenger.
Yeah.
And then you submit to God by some specific rituals which you do throughout the day, shown by the Prophet Messenger. We call prayer. 5 prayers you've heard. Yeah. And we spend from our wealth that God has given a certain portion of it to the ones who are needy, the poor and the destitute and others. So this is called zakat. So we give from us because the wealth ultimately is not ours. God is the one who gave us.
Yes.
And He's told us that in your wealth there is a right of other people who are poor and the destitute. So we give that. If
we're distributors, rather
we
than
distribute,
owners. That's
and we also we do pilgrimage in Mecca, in which when you go there to see yourself, the brotherhood, sisterhood, the unity in worshipping God there in the center of monotheism, in which people are there in the presence of monotheistic understanding of God and worshipping God. And when you go there in Hajj, you will see the physics and chemistry and how it comes through all in action, and you can only experience this. I can't describe it. Those who have not been, if you're a Muslim, go and experience what is called the Hajj, or the lesser pilgrimage called the Umrah. So these are the 5 pillars of Islam that we describe, and the 6 articles of faith. That is what a Muslim is. A life to live in submission and surrender to God, so that you are in harmony with the environment and all the people that are around you. And by doing that life in giving the rights where it's due, rights to people, rights to God, if you live and die in that state of faith, God has promised us paradise, heaven, and we'll be safe from the hellfire. If some people did something wrong, they might be cleansed with punishment in hellfire, but because they had that iota of faith in God, that God was the only one worthy of worship, they will eventually come to, after cleansing, to heaven. Only the people who remains in hellfire are those who are knowledgeable people, knowing God. When I say knowledgeable, they know God and they rejected Him with stubbornness and arrogance.
Yeah.
So that's what is someone who's
they
called...
Know, they believe and they say, I still reject you. Those ones. And if you think about it, it's kind of crazy to be in that position. But Iblis, this original one we spoke to you about, was in exactly that situation, right? And the thing is, one thing to really understand is, we are nothing and have nothing without His mercy and His beneficence, right? And how can you genuinely ask for forgiveness if you don't believe in Him or don't trust Him? You can't. And if you can't ask for forgiveness, but you're not a perfect being, then if you were in paradise with other things, you'd start to rot it. You'd start to. So it's literally a self-made destiny. They cut out the last possible solution as soon as by rejecting God, and only by accepting Him can they take the foundation of the solution, which is to ask for forgiveness. We believe that Allah said that He already made the angels that don't sin. Then there's the jinn and the human beings, and had we not sinned, He would have wiped us out and replaced it with something else. Because our job is to be imperfect, but to ask for forgiveness. And this is part of how more things are essentially possible, if that's the case, with humans being with free will, than otherwise. And His magnificence was able to solve even that apparently impossible paradox of free will and...
So having said all of this, I just want to connect to, remember, you believe in God, but that destruction that made this disconnect of this commitment to God, what we are inviting you formally is bring that connection back to God through Islam, because that is that only method of connection.
No, this was lovely.
Yeah? So, be a Muslim, submit to God, worshipping alone, and living your life accordingly. This is what you need to think seriously and make your own judgment about it.
I will do.
This
Thank you.
we spoke. We introduced you to this last one of the final surahs, which was this one we went through with 4 lines. There's another one that I think you in particular would really like to read, which is Surah Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman is the merciful, essentially. And if you can, try and find, I don't know if I should recite here.
Surah 55,
Yeah,
number 55.
Surah number 55. Shall I recite a portion of it?
Yeah.
That's my lucky number.
Ar-Rahman is
55 is my
a
lucky number.
It begins, I'll just give you a small sample of it, but you read it and get the meaning.
Oh.
So,
should we go to one side?
yeah.
Or sorry.
So yeah, 55. Do look it up and get the full recitation and look through the meaning. But for me, it was one of these stunning surahs and the beauty of it. So it goes,
الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان السماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنعام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. This last line becomes a repeated theme. We hear it throughout the surah. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَّا تُكَذِّبَانِ. And it means, which of the blessings of your Lord will you then deny? Beautiful surah. So read this one through.
He learnt it in Arabic.
I'm not native Arab, I'm English born and raised. Alhamdulillah, you learned stuff.
So what we would definitely encourage you is to listen to the Quran being recited.
Yeah.
And they're professional reciters.
Way better than me.
We recite, and definitely listen to the recitation and read. What I recommend is, so like Surah 55, if you type in the YouTube, for example, Surah 55, Ar-Rahman, listen to a reciter and look at the meaning at the same time. So you know what it's saying, and you can feel inside.
Yeah.
And then I realize why the Quran is in Arabic language being given the final message to the whole world in Arabic. Because such a richness of eloquence and beauty and power of transition within this language. I'm not an Arab, you're not an Arab, but we appreciate this, So, just don't.
Language is actually a really important point. I think I mentioned it slightly before, because so I speak some French and some German a little bit, right? But if you try and translate French to English, you can get a roughly similar paragraph, not lose too much meaning. German, maybe a bit more. Try to Russian, you're going to lose a fair bit. But to Hebrew, Arabic, you start to use a whole ton. And one of the really interesting reasons why is this system of having a root. So what they have is every word has like these root letters, and then it's like basically algebraic system that's used to turn those letters into different words that have different derived meanings. And the way they sort of go together, the way this whole language is together, is part of how the meaning gets so well preserved. But it's also part of how, when the Quran came, sort of new words were essentially invented in the Quran, but people just understood them because of this system.
Let's just give an example of the same word Ar-Rahman used. The root word will be Rahama, Rahamim, right? And these words has essentially meanings of the womb, Rahm. The womb which the mother carries, nourishes, protects, looks after, and then delivers the baby. And Ar-Rahman is someone who is this kind of merciful. And within that form, from this Rahama, it came in this form of Fa'lan, Rahman. There's another form called Rahim. So every surah of the Quran begins, apart from one surah, with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The words in the name of Allah, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahim is also meaning connected with mercy and grace, but it is a different connotation. It's in a word of fa'il in that pattern, because you're talking about how from the root the pattern is. So Ar-Rahman is the mercy that's given in a way when now, momentarily, as you walk constantly. Ar-Rahim is a long-lasting perpetual mercy. That will be like in the hereafter when God gives and shows that. So once, for example, if I want to say in Arabic, I am now angry, I would say I'm ghadban, ghadban. If I'm say I am thirsty, I'm atshan. If I'm tired, I'm jaw'an. So all of this describes my current state. It doesn't mean I'm hungry before or hungry later. This is my current state of affairs. So Arabs are so interconnected within the root system, describing the verb or the noun describes an action related to time in different ways. So God describes in various ways his attributes through this beautiful language in Arabic. So what we definitely encourage is to, without delay, think seriously about the commitment that you really owe to your Creator, who's given you this beautiful life. And you, I don't have to describe anything about you, you know how precious you are. But are we taking responsibility of our own self, the amana, the trust that God has given us? Are we looking after ourselves? Are we fulfilling the purpose that we are created? Is a question that often we don't ask because of distraction. We're always busy with something. Friends, job, work, research.
Lifeline.
Yeah.
But that you are worshipping and ask for.
Yeah. Because in the hereafter, who's going to help us and save us? No one but myself. My friend, your companion, your partner, your husband, your wife, your children, your father. No one will be helping anyone else in that day. So the Quran actually described this. يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ. In that day, they will flee from each other. Every individual flee from each other. Brother from the brother, husband from wives, and so on and so forth, describes graphically how they will flee. No one will say, I'm going to help you. Even.
Remember this whole people gonna.
Mother and son.
Yes.
Nobody help us.
You remember this whole thing about the good deeds and the bad deeds, and people will come and try and take your good deeds and dump their bad deeds on you? This is why. You're right. I owe you so much.
No, she can listen later.
A lot of this.
Yeah. Even Satan or Shaitan.
I'm going to go pray before it's too late.
I'm going to go inshallah now as well. We're going to end up and she's going to look after him now. Yeah. So
It may not be dinner anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But anyway, so let's end there. I was going to say, even Satan will say, I'm not to blame. I only whispered, you followed me by your own volition. Why do you blame me? He will wash his hands and say, I'm not responsible. Just because I whispered you, I didn't make you follow the way of forgetting God, being neglectful and going against him and becoming arrogant. So he will take all responsibility and say it's on you.
He'll be like,
that's
I gave you a book. He sent people to talk to you. I just whispered.
Yeah. So I think we've given you enough food for thought.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Take it seriously and come to Islam, because that's the way of all the prophets of the past. People may have deviated from it, not realizing it. So it's the same religion that you'd expected from Abraham to Moses to Jesus and Muhammad, all bringing the same religion of submission to God. Okay? Pleasure speaking to you.
Nice to meet you.
Take care. And see how he's doing now. Okay, let's go and pray.
Yeah, inshallah.
Okay, thank you. For you.